Cedar Point is a 364-acre amusement park located on a peninsula in Sandusky, Ohio, along the shores of Lake Erie. It is America's second oldest amusement park and was recently voted the best amusement park in the world for the 10th year in a row by Amusement Today. During its 137-year history, Cedar Point has seen its share of rides, roller coasters, trends, and history. It opened in the summer of 1870 with a small beer garden, bathhouse, and dance floor. The only access to the resort was by steamboat. The history of its thrill rides began in 1892 with the introduction of the Switchback Railway. The Great Depression of the 1930s sent Cedar Point into a slump that lasted about 20 years. In the 1950s, Cedar Point was almost torn down to be converted into a residential area. The citizens of Sandusky urged Ohio's governor to intervene. The developers' plans were then changed, and it was decided that Cedar Point would be turned into the Disneyland of the Midwest. The Sandusky Convention and Visitors Bureau calls Cedar Point a thrill seeker's paradise, featuring some of the tallest and fastest scream machines around. With a total of 70 rides, Cedar Point is the world's largest amusement park by ride count. It holds the current world record for having the most roller coasters. There are 17 in all. It is also the only amusement park having 4 roller coasters exceeding the 200-foot height threshold. A total of more than 10 miles of roller coaster track dominates the park. Cedar Point's first roller coaster, the Switchback Railway, was built in 1892. It was a wooden coaster that had to be manually pulled back up to the top by a ride attendant. After the turn of the century, the figure-8 roller toboggan was introduced in 1902. It was later renamed the Racer. Dip the Dip Scenic Railway was opened in 1908. It was an incredible 6 stories high and had 4,200 feet of track. It was later renamed the Leapfrog Railway, then renamed again as High Frolics. Finally, around 1910, Leap the Dips was introduced. Nearly 2 decades would pass before the Cedar Point Cyclone was introduced in 1929. It was a wooden coaster, advertised as being scientifically built for speed, thrills, and safety. In the 1950s, 2 small steel roller coasters were built, Kittyland and the Wild Mouse. The 1960s brought Scamper, the first wooden coaster since the 1920s, and a small steel coaster named Broadway Trip. The last of Cedar Point's retired roller coasters, the Jumbo Jet, was built in 1972. It was a steel Wild Mouse type of coaster that used individual self-powered cars to run up a spiral lift hill unassisted. It now resides in Russia at a park called Bayoland. The Blue Streak, Cedar Point's oldest operating coaster, opened in 1964. The traditional out-and-back wooden coaster provides plenty of airtime for its riders. In 1969, the Cedar Creek Mine Ride opened. The Runaway Mine-style coaster features 2 lift hills and was one of the first coasters to utilize steel tubular track. Red, white, and blue for America's bicentennial, the Corkscrew was the first to feature 3 inversions and cross over a midway. When the Gemini Racing Coaster opened in 1978, it was the tallest, steepest, and fastest dual-track coaster in the world. Over 83 million rides have been given by this coaster, more than any other at Cedar Point. The Wildcat is a compact Wild Mouse-style steel coaster that opened in 1970. The Junior Gemini became Cedar Point's first family coaster in 1979. At only 19 feet high, it allowed parents to sit next to their small children during the ride. Disaster Transport originally opened as Avalanche Run in 1985. Enclosed, darkened, and renamed in 1990, it is Cedar Point's only bobsled coaster, riding freely in a U-shaped trough. Iron Dragon, Cedar Point's first suspended coaster, opened in 1987. It has 2 lift hills and reaches speeds of up to 40 miles per hour. Cedar Point fired the first shot in the World Coaster Arms Race with the opening of Magnum XL 200 in 1989. It was the first coaster over 200 feet tall. It introduced the term mega coaster or hypercoaster into the vocabulary of Americans. 1991 saw the opening of Mean Streak, a wooden twister coaster that crisscrosses itself 9 times over more than 1 mile of track. At a height of 161 feet, it reaches a speed of 65 miles per hour. Raptor, a suspended inverted steel coaster, opened in 1994. With open-air suspended seats, your legs dangle and you feel as if you're flying as the coaster throws you through 6 inversions and a cobra roll. When Mantis opened in 1996, it was the tallest, fastest, and most twisted stand-up coaster in the world. In 1999, Cedar Point opened another family coaster called the Woodstock Express. When Millennium Force debuted in 2000, the term Giga Coaster was introduced. It broke 10 world records, including the first coaster to break the 300-foot-tall threshold. It uses an advanced elevator cable lift system for its trains and was the first to use a magnetic braking system. Costing $25 million, it is tied for the most expensive coaster at Cedar Point. In 2002, Wicked Twister was introduced. It uses the advanced technology of linear induction motors to blast riders out of the station at 5 different speeds. It is the tallest and fastest double-twisting impulse roller coaster ever created. It's comprised of a U-shaped track with ends reaching 215 feet in the air. Each tower twists 450 degrees. In 2003, Cedar Point debuted Top Thrill Dragster, once again introducing the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world, and also introducing the term Stratocoaster into the vocabulary of roller coaster enthusiasts. Riders are launched forward from a starting line position and reach 120 miles per hour in 4 seconds. The train then zooms straight up a 420-foot-tall hill, then free falls back down, twisting 270 degrees during its descent. At a cost of $25 million, it is tied with Millennium Force as the most expensive ride at Cedar Point. In 2007, Cedar Point introduced its 17th coaster, Maverick. It features tiered seating, 2 launch areas, including a launch tunnel, the first of its kind twisted horseshoe roll, 3 inversions, lots of airtime, and banked turns. It won the Golden Ticket Award for the 2007 Best New Ride.